Right, welcome to the Pod-ject Breakout podcast with myself, Graham Poucher, and most importantly...
Ben Stoker, still
Ben Stoker.
Still Ben Stoker.
He's not changed his name yet. I don't know why he would. It's a great name.
It depends what game you play, actually.
Really?
Yeah, we may have slightly different characters depending on what game you play.
Oh, I love that. And obviously you share a surname with a certain author as well.
I certainly do, yes.
Which is pretty cool. Did you change your name or did you get that name?
No, that was handed down to me, yes. So, in fact, throughout a lot of school, my nickname was actually Bram.
Was it?
A lot of my friends referred to me as Bram.
I got a little bit of a shiver down the inside of my spine then, yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And is that why you've asked me to wash my neck before I came in?
Absolutely, yes, and get rid of that garlic t-shirt you're wearing. Yeah.
I had a Bill Murray last night, mate. There's nothing I can do about that. So, obviously, Bram Stoker, I think I'm probably underplaying his role in literary history by saying he was good at writing stories.
Yeah, he was all right, wasn't he?
One of the taglines we use here is "step into the story," because I remember you saying you described an escape room to a television presenter once, and you said it's like playing your favourite book, your favourite computer game.
Yeah.
When you're designing a room, are they games? Are they storylines? Are they both? Or are they something else?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I suppose the way I design a game, I like to try come up with a storyline beforehand. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to be locked in a room for 60 minutes, there's got to be a reason why you're locked in that room.
Yeah.
Or because not all games are, the room that we're currently sat in, we're recording from the Antidote at the moment. The aim of the Antidote isn't actually to try and get out of the room. So at no point in this game are any of the doors locked. But you've still got to have an end game. You've still got to have something that you need to complete or you need to do in that 60 minutes. So there's got to be a reason. So I try to come up with a story. So there is a storyline running throughout the game. But you can pretty much make that story your own. The groups that come in to play the game, we see from game to game, people react differently in different situations. People come up with different ways of working the way around a room or trying to, the dynamics of the team can play a massive part. I suppose what I want to do, I just want people to lose themselves for 60 minutes in an experience. So whether that be somebody coming in who, as you say, is a gamer, they've played a lot of computer games and things, and, this, I suppose, for them could be a way of almost stepping into a real life scenario that they might come across when they're playing a computer game. We get people coming in who, say when they leave that it's like they've just played a part in a movie.
Yeah.
A film. It is just about setting that scene and allowing people to, I suppose, run with that and, do whatever they would do in that particular situation. So, it's an interesting one. But I would say I like to come up with a story. So that is what people are playing for me.
Yeah.
They're playing the way through that storyline.
Because you could look at it different ways and saying, well, I've got this ending and I'm going to retrofit a story and a bunch of puzzles to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got this particular puzzle that I'm going to build an entire room around. Or, the third one is the narrative. There's a story.
Yeah,
you come up
exactly.
with a story. And so if the story is that important to you, do you then go, right, how do I tell this story through puzzles, through taking them through this process?
I suppose so. But that's interesting what you say about sometimes the idea can just stem from a really good puzzle. I'm constantly thinking of different ideas for puzzles. I've got books and books of, notebooks and the notes on my phone and things of ideas that you come up with. I might be out and about and I'll just spot something and think, oh, that would make a really, really good puzzle.
I have to get you a Bram Stoker style leather journal.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
I'll rat ear it a bit, make
absolutely.
it look authentic.
I can keep that in my little vampire killing briefcase that I carry around with me all the time. So yeah,
that's gonna be awkward though, isn't it? When you meet your uncle from Transylvania.
Absolutely, yeah.
and I can just say, as open-minded as Ben is, he got really funny when I tried to put him in a coffin with a load of sand and send him to Whitby. But, if you don't want something for your birthday, then look out next year. Sorry.
No, it's all right. Yeah.
It cost me a lot of money. Do you know how hard it is to get that much sand, let alone a coffin?
Oh, I can believe it.
It's not easy.
Believe it.
Yeah.
The shipping costs nowadays are not, they're not cheap.
I should have really bought the coffin in Whitby. But, we live and learn, don't we? So you were saying.
So
I take my medication while you crack on.
The amount of times I come up with a puzzle or I'll come up with an idea. The first room that I designed, I didn't really, because I'd never designed one before, so I didn't really know where to begin. So I actually started with, as I say, a little bit of a storyline, but I did then just start trying to design puzzles.
Yeah.
But then I was trying to fit puzzles into a scenario that maybe they didn't necessarily fit.
Yeah.
So I probably started off, I might have had 30 or 40 puzzles.
Really?
But half of them didn't make it into the room because they didn't make sense in this particular room.
It's almost like the process when you're writing a script, isn't it?
Yeah,
you might
absolutely,
have characters, you might have situations, and they go in the bin.
So, whereas the second room that I designed and then sort of moving forward, it was very much, I tried to come up with the storyline and the concept first. Yeah. I didn't really think about what puzzles I was going to put in there until I'd got that. And even until I'd started building the room. Once I'd come up with a storyline, it's then very easy to think, right, that's the story. Yeah. This is where we're going. This is where the players need to end up. This is the end game. So you can then build your room and build your theme around that. Once you've started to then build the room, then you slowly start to get ideas of, right, what sort of puzzle could go in this room? Yeah. Because if there are, for example, take a science lab. I don't have a science lab game, but if I did, I could already start to picture, okay, what have you got in a science lab? Okay, you've got all this science equipment, you've got all these sort of beakers, you've got all the sort of scientific equipment. So you then start to think, right, how could I take one of those pieces of equipment or a couple of pieces of those equipment and build them into a puzzle? Yeah. Because then that makes sense in the world that you're creating. Yeah. What you don't want to do is start to come up with, all right, so we're in a jail cell, but the puzzles are nothing to do with that theme. They don't make sense in that world because immediately you're losing your audience.
Yeah. That's a really good puzzle with all them shapes, but I'm pretty sure there won't be a bunch of shapes.
Absolutely,
in a beehive.
Exactly, yes. So that's how I go about designing things now. I'm also really fortunate, we sort of touched on it in the last podcast, and I talked about Lee and Phil who work with me. It's nice to actually have people to throw ideas around with now. Because when I designed my first game, I was pretty much on my own. I had to come up with every idea, whereas quite often we'll come up with ideas just from sitting around talking to each other. Someone will come up with an idea and say, oh, what about if we did this? Or would it be possible to do this? And that just gets the cogs sort of, moving, and you then, oh, well, yeah, that's a really good idea, but what about if you changed it to this? Or what about if... And you slowly start to come up with these ideas. It's much better, I feel, when you've got 2 or 3 heads all throwing ideas around than just trying to think of everything yourself. Yeah. So I'm fortunate in that they're really invested in the rooms, and they want the games that they run to be the best games that they can possibly be. Yeah. So it's nice when they are so involved because, as I say, as far as I'm concerned, it makes for a much better room and a much better game. Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is a live puzzle, but your microphone started drooping. So I don't know if we can just, if you can just tense your muscles while we're doing that. See, even just conversations with Ben, there's lots of things to solve and get past.
Is that better?
It is now. That's unlocked a new pocket that I didn't know were there. See what I did there? Seamless. So it's very much tapping into that kind of the storytelling and narratives. I think a lot of people might, I think a lot of gamers would appreciate this, and a lot of designers and operators would appreciate this of escape rooms. But the general public might think, well, it's about solving puzzles, it's about this and that, but actually it's much more, and that's where the magic is. And we were just talking about it off air, weren't we, about I don't know where it came from this morning when I was thinking about it, the Choose Your Own Adventure books, which is pretty much all I read for about a decade as a kid.
Yeah, I was with you. Yeah.
And then, your eyes lit up because you've been collecting them, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. Although I'm trying to keep that a little bit quiet because as soon as people know you're collecting stuff, the prices suddenly fly up. So,
well, I mean,
you
quit collecting them a long time ago.
Oh, absolutely,
now you won't pay more than 90p for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the premise of those books was so good because it was, do you do this? Go to page whatever. Do you do this? Go to page whatever.
Yeah.
And that could be a dead end, couldn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
I were always a crafty fox, so I'd leave a little bit of.
So you could go back, so you didn't have to start again. Yes.
Chicken. I believe
absolutely.
Is the right word.
No, I think that's clever planning ahead is what I like to call it. Yeah.
There was one I remember, and I thought about the first time I played one of these escape rooms here.
Yeah.
I thought about this book, and it was a book called Terrors Out of Time.
Right.
And it will be a dream of mine to get the movie rights to it and make it. But there's also that fear of when you go back and you read the book and you go, this isn't how I remember it.
Yeah, absolutely.
In my head, this was Indiana Jones times 10, the Mummy and everything.
And then suddenly it's just not quite living up to your memories.
It's like watching He-Man and Thundercats again.
It's not quite the same, is it?
No. But it's those. There's already like this seed of that interaction between a storyline and obviously we've seen it with Bandersnatch on Netflix as well.
Absolutely,
Bear Grylls did one as well.
Yeah.
Escape rooms seem to be taking that one step further.
Yeah, definitely.
How do you think, or do you think they do it all linked to the movies, linked to big budget TV series that we see on streaming now?
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing that in certain places and certain. There are games now out there that are sort of tied in with movies or with TV shows and things, or people have bought the rights to a specific thing.
So people are doing that now.
Oh yeah, I mean, you do also get some games. I've played games that are based on specific
inspired
TV.
by
well, no, I mean, I've played some that are complete rip-offs.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's no cease and desist letters going out.
Well, it always amazes me when I leave these places thinking, how on earth have you got away with that? And I think probably they've just got away with it because they've not been caught at that moment in time.
Because it's like, people who cosplay and have costume characters. They've got to be very open saying they're not official. So they're not purporting to be official, but there's certain words you can't use.
But there are some official ones out there. There are movies and TV shows and things that do have official escape rooms. I know some designers that I've spoken to who have designed rooms for those particular brands and those particular rooms and things. Yeah, and it's really interesting to talk to them about it.
So they get commissioned by the studio?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah.
And is that to do with the launch, or is that to do with monetizing that brand?
Sometimes it can be, so sometimes it could just be to do with the launch, It might not even be a full escape room.
Yeah.
It might be that it's like a 15-minute game that's tied in, but it's another way, I suppose, of advertising that movie or advertising that TV show. But you do get some that are running constantly, that are an escape room, but they are based around a specific TV show or a specific story or a specific movie, yeah.
Well, I guess ice cream vans have been driving around for the last sort of 30, 40 years with Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck on the side of them, and Disney's not been chasing them.
That don't look just quite like Mickey Mouse. So,
Having just got back from Disney, I'm thinking, by heck, I'm glad they don't come over here looking for a soft serve ice cream, because they'd be all over it, wouldn't they? Yeah,
absolutely.
But the that kind of movie experience and being able, especially for most people, they're not actors. They're not in the theatre, but they get to play a part as a character.
Yeah,
they might
absolutely.
not be into computer games, or some people might be massively into computer games. Do you ever think, there's the age-old thing of, will they ever make a film that based on a computer game that's good, 4 or 5 stars?
Yeah.
Do you think they'll ever come to a point where someone will design an escape room and an original story that is that good?
Possibly. I mean,
is that our challenge, Ben?
I have played rooms myself where I walk out of them and think that was so good. That storyline was so good that you could imagine it being
really. Well, looking at your face now, it's just gone back like that, hasn't it?
Yeah, I can. I can think of a few. Am I allowed to mention them?
Yeah, why not? We'll get them on.
Yeah. Well, for me,
just don't dress up as Mickey Mouse.
No, for me, the butcher, butcher in Nottingham.
You've told me about
I've told you numerous times about this game because, as you know, anyone that knows me knows that I'm a little bit obsessed with horror. I like things scary. And that was one of the first horror games that I ever played.
Yeah.
And the whole storyline, the whole backstory and everything, I could totally see that being a movie.
Yeah.
I could totally see, that being entertaining to go and watch something on. Absolutely. Probably at the time, and I'm going back a long time when I first played that game, but probably the most immersive game I'd played at that point.
Right.
I'd played some other games that you had a bit of a storyline, but like you said earlier, back then it was just about, okay, you're going into a room, you've got to solve some puzzles, you've got to get out. There wasn't necessarily any more development than that. So there wasn't really any storyline, whereas Butcher was probably the first game that I played where there was a full narrative leading up to it. There was, once you were in there, the way the room worked and just the look of the room. It's scary. And I can imagine, just being stood in the middle of the room with the lights on looking round.
Are we talking Saw,
Yeah, but this would, I played that game before I'd even watched any of the Saw movies or anything. So, it's not, that's definitely something that's not based on that movie. But it would make such a good storyline, so I could see that. And there's other ones that are, there's other ones that I've played where you come out and just think, that I could see that. You do get some games. There are some games out there that actually they'll start off with one game and then they'll release sort of a second part of it.
Right.
So sort of
So we could see sequels then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there are some games out there that are sort of a sequel to a game that you've played previously. There's a place over in Derby called Unescapable, I think, a company over in Derby. And they have, at the moment, I think they've got 4 different rooms. And each room is a completely different storyline. But when you first arrive, rather than it just being a briefing telling you about that particular room and giving you that story, it's all tied in. So all 4 of the games are tied in with the introduction. So they basically set themselves up, rather than just being an escape room company, they set themselves up as it's sort of a time traveling company.
Brilliant.
They send you to various But when you arrive, you're met by somebody in character who's part of that world before you've even got into the game. So things like that, I think that's where a lot of games and a lot of escape rooms and a lot of companies are developing those ideas, and it does become very much like a a movie.
And on that, obviously, it's not. Like you talked about what puzzles are suitable for what storyline, and you've got to be very careful with that, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Say if you were designing a room that did have more of a storyline feel to it, are you then becoming less of a games master and more of a set builder because you want to create a space that's as good as it could be on camera and it could work?
Yeah, I think they sort of go hand in hand, really. It's interesting. We've had conversations. I'm fortunate that because of the where I'm situated, where my rooms are, I do have some really good links with some other owners around sort of Yorkshire, and we do get together quite often, and we'll have sort of social evenings where we chat not just about escape rooms, about all sorts of things. And we've had these discussions. What's more important? Is it more important to have really good engaging puzzles, but there's not necessarily any storyline around it? Or is it more important to have the place looking fantastic and, all singing, all dancing, but maybe the puzzles don't really live up to scratch? And I've played rooms on both sides of the spectrum. I've played some games that when you first walk in, you can see they've not spent masses and masses of money.
Yeah.
It looks okay, the setup's decent, but the puzzles are so engaging. The puzzles are really, so you still come out of there having had a fantastic experience because you want to, because I'm there to solve puzzles. That's, as an escape room enthusiast, that's that moment of when you solve something and something opens or you open something. That to me is probably more important. But you also, I've walked into places that look absolutely incredible. You can see that, the money that's been spent in there, and it is like walking onto a movie set, or it's like walking into a theatre, and the set design and things. But the puzzles don't really live up to scratch, or they don't work, or it doesn't really make any sense. So I've left some places like that feeling a bit deflated. I think it's trying to get that balance. Yeah, you want people to leave thinking, I've just seen something amazing and I have been able to completely lose myself now. But I've also been really engaged. I've also had a really good time. I've also been challenged. So I think there's a real. It's trying to get that balance, really. And the best rooms I've played do that really well. You can feel like you're in a completely different situation, but you are also there at the end of the day to solve things and so it's
the age-old question. I guess it'll be going on forever, that conversation, won't it? Because it's the ultimate challenge, isn't it? And do you think we'll ever see a time where escape rooms, and we've seen obviously the industry is in massive growth still at the moment, even though it's challenging economically for everybody. So it's not maybe increasing at the size it was before. No, but for a lot of people, they're going, right, this is the business I'm in. This is what I do now. This is what I love. Do you think we might get to a point where someone will be, like authors, they'll be looking for, people buying their books, people downloading their books, and then ultimately someone buying the film rights to it. Do you think we'll ever get there with an escape room story? And would you have to have a copyright on that? Will people have to protect their work? I don't know.
I mean, this is one of the interesting things, because I've played games where it's a completely different room to somewhere I've played elsewhere, but the theme's very, very similar. The storyline's very, very similar. But I don't really know how you would copyright, your idea, or even the puzzles. I've played games where I'll play a puzzle and it's very similar to something that I've played before.
Naturally.
That doesn't necessarily mean that person has seen that puzzle and thought, oh, that's brilliant, I'll put that in my room. I think sometimes, especially sort of good ideas, they just, people naturally come up with those ideas or something similar. It's
could be the narrative then. So the actual storyline
leads you to,
and that's what you could copyright.
Possibly, yes,
it'd be interesting because I do think that there might come a day where we see a story that's emerged where a studio or a streaming service, obviously streaming services are constantly looking for content.
Yeah.
And they create something, and then someone goes, "Oh, well, hang on a minute, that's an absolute rip-off of my story. No one else is doing."
I tell you what I have seen, which is interesting, probably over the last couple of years more so, is the way that some rooms are, I suppose, sort of advertised. And I've seen there are certain companies that I know that, when they're releasing a new game, they'll do like a 2 or 3 minute short movie based around that game. As a bit of I suppose if you were going to the cinema and a trailer comes up and it shows you certain parts of, it engages you, it gets you, and it sort of sells the story to you and makes you think, oh yeah, I really want to go see that. I have seen that more and more with escape rooms. These little trailers, these little films, or these little, the way that they sort of sell the story and sell the game to you has definitely improved. And I think that's really interesting to see the development of that. Whether somebody will potentially take that next step. Actually, this isn't a trailer for my room to get you to come and play my room. This is, a film based on the room that you've just played, because, you understand that story, you've played it, you've seen it, you've been part of it. And actually, I think that'd be really interesting to see, see if something like that occurs or happens.
Just looking ahead about because it's constantly evolving, operators are constantly innovating, enthusiasts want that innovation.
Absolutely,
they want that. And then it's sort of going, well, how else can we grow this economy, this industry? How else can we monetize it? Because ultimately you can only get between 4 and 6 people in most rooms.
Well, exactly,
at a given price, you know. And that price is, akin to a decent cinema ticket, isn't it?
Absolutely,
when you've got a group of a decent size. So it's just looking at how we can, because it's almost like all part of that creative industry. And it feels like with escape rooms, we're there, and then there's this little glass ceiling, and once you go through
that, But again, I think I'm seeing that more and more now. I think people are looking at what is that next step, whether that be sort of engagement with characters and things, or we touched on the last podcast, Operation ClearSafe, which is my first live actor game. There is interaction with actors. There is, so they almost become a part of that as well. And I'm seeing that more and more with rooms. That interaction, that sort of looking at what is the next step. How can we take what we're already doing really well and do it even better and push it onto the next level,
because it needs to make money to keep it going.
Well, absolutely,
it is a commercial industry, isn't it?
But also because there are so many places out there as well now that are, there are a lot of escape rooms out there. How do you set yourself aside? How do you get people to want to come and play your game as opposed to the other 10, 12 games that are out there?
The ultimate is getting booked up 6 months ahead, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yes,
like a quality restaurant.
That'd be a dream. But I would say booking trends as well, especially since coming out of the back of the pandemic, and I don't think it's just escape rooms. I think leisure, industries, and in general, I've definitely noticed a difference in booking trends, and the people that we're getting through the doors. I see a lot more last minute bookings now than I did before. You still get the people that, especially if people are playing with larger groups, or playing as a team. You might have a team of people that you regularly play with, and it can be a bit of a nightmare trying to get all those people together. So you have to plan in advance. But I am definitely seeing a lot more last minute bookings now, and people just doing things on the spur of the moment. It's interesting.
Probably a good place to leave it to go on.
Absolutely.
Projectbreakout.co.uk. Ben, thank you so much for all your time.
No problem. No,
Thanks for joining us today on our podcast.